Thank you so much for attending another video. In this video, we're going to get into data security and compliance in the cloud. We're actually going to do a few things. We're going to go over applying data security controls and investigating cloud compliance controls. Somewhat surface level. Some things I have done before to an extent. Some I haven't, specifically with AWS. But while this is loading, now when we're working with data, we must ensure that it's kept secure, right? Naturally, data security, we talk about cybersecurity as a whole, right, and all the different, general components of it. Data can be kept secure using different methods such as encryption, right, ensuring data integrity, enabling that data classification, and just limiting access to data to unauthorized parties, right? Make sure all of these are working. Now, what I'm going to do is just investigate, light investigating of how to encrypt files and discuss ways that can be utilized in a cloud context, at least, right? So what I'm going to do is actually first start with using HashCalc to encrypt files. And hashes are one-way cryptographic algorithms, right? And they mask data. Right? Actually, let me close this out with a lot of different characters based on the output of the data that through said algorithm. Now, there's two main hashes, usually MD5 and SHA. And HashCalc, that I'll show here in a moment, is a tool that allows me to check. Let me close this out. Check like 13 popular hash and checksum algorithms. Again, I've done a video on this before using that particular tool, and I'll be using it actually on this particular server. And I'll be doing some comparisons. So let's actually open it up here. I'm actually going to use two applications. And again, this is going to be somewhat of a surface level overview for everything as far as the data privacy and encryption, things of that nature. So let me get this going here. Actually, just to make the video a little bit shorter, I know what to do here. All right, perfect. So I have two files here. So I have one notepad file that's entitled hashme, ME, and basically with some text here. I'm Michael Scott. If you know who that is. Testing HashCalc, and then I have an empty one here just to do some hash comparisons, right? That's what I'm going to create here in HashCalc, right? So as we can see, the data format is under file. Now for the data we're going to use, let's take a look here. This is going to be the hashme file that I saved. Let's open that up. Okay. All right, and then we're going to calculate. And then you could select any algorithms really. I could select any algorithm for the comparisons I'm doing, but I'm just going to keep everything default for the hash algorithms we're using. But nonetheless, so I'm just going to use MD5, right? So MD5, as we can see the hash here, actually going to code it, right? Now, as we can see exactly what it is. And now I'm actually going to add some text to it. And then you do it again, right? Oh, actually, let me save it first. Okay, there we go. So now we do it again after I saved it and still drawing from this particular file that I have. So once I save, that means it pretty much been notified that it's been updated, so I added the text. And now we can, calculate again for another hash algorithm. And now if I paste here, now we can see that's a completely different hash that it's given, right? So, we can compare contrast now if I remove this, right? And then hit save again, then I calculate, we take a look, it's exactly the same exactly the same hash algorithm that we had from the first one. Again, we can see the first and the second one, they're not the same, right? And that's because I changed the text of the file, the text that's within the file, right? And when I saved it, it updated where it was drawing from, as far as the data format file that's in HashCalc, and it completely changed it with the second hash algorithm, even though it's the same type as far as the MD5. And then when I changed it back to the original text, it reverted back to the original hash calculation that it was given us before. Whenever we do the comparison, completely identical. And this is just an example to show how to manually encrypt files although with server-side encryption, right, as part of a public cloud. This is going to usually at least be automatic and fully managed by the CSP or cloud service provider. But now we can actually move on to investigating cloud compliance controls. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so it looks like it's loading up here for the server that we're going to use. So we're just going to investigate some cloud compliance controls, very surface level, and this is going to be particularly for AWS. Now, it's key that anything created and stored, right, inside of a cloud is compliant with relevant regulatory standards. Now, most organizations have retention policies that are upheld by a lot of different things, but such as like personally identifiable information or PII, right, to ensure that they're compliant, right? And in the context of cloud computing, at least, data can be given a retention hold, which means that any resource tagged this way will be retained at the time for a time as specified by the hold, and then once expired can be deleted. Fortunately, now typically a management policy would be enabled that automatically deletes and destroys the data that has passed the retention period. Now, data can also be tagged by legal holds as well, which ensures like data is not deleted or overwritten. Right, and now public cloud subscriptions, I can actually, or anyone can actually add this tag to many different types of resources, like a S3 object lock in AWS, which we'll take a look at, which has options for either legal or retention holds. And this ensures that the lock resource, right, cannot be deleted or overwritten as long as the lock is applied. But what I'm going to do here, now that we have it loaded, I'm actually going to be investigating an AWS Artifact. Now, what an AWS Artifact is, it allows users to download Amazon security and compliance documentation to be shared with auditors and regulators, and allows users also to demonstrate compliance with resources held inside of the AWS public cloud subscription. I'm just going to investigate how to navigate and use the AWS Artifact. And as you can see, this was recently visited because I've already done this. So it's been, so when I open up Edge, it automatically went to the AWS website, automatically fill in my credentials I have access to. So now that I'm in the AWS Artifact for compliance and security, I'm going to take a look at the report, right? And I'm actually going to get PCI in particular, take a payment card industry. Now, before I continue, now the security, identity, and compliance section, right, in AWS, it just allows me to implement different controls, right, and quick access to tools like AWS Certificate Manager, Cognito, IAM, or Identity Access Management, Audit Manager, etc. However, access to these tools, I'm in the labs, but access to these tools in a real world environment, which I will definitely do in a future video as far as that real world environment access, it depends on your privileges, right? And due to restrictions, again, in my environment, certain things can't be accessed. But the filter that I placed here for PCI, right, it just gives me the most relevant search. And I'm actually going to take a look here for the PCI 3DS attestation. I don't think I'll be able to download it yet because of my permissions. But nonetheless, even though I have restricted access to these reports, I just wanted to showcase exactly what everything looks like as far as, being able to do this. And in a real world environment, I can actually use this report to satisfy regulatory bodies that the resources and infrastructure created as part of the cloud infrastructure, fulfilling all the requirements necessary. But nonetheless, this brings us to the end of the video as far as data security and compliance in the cloud. Again, everything was pretty much surface level. We applied some data security controls, and we investigated some cloud compliance controls as well. This was definitely a lot of fun. Can't wait for the next one where we actually go over cloud security assessments and a few tools to use those assessments, to actually work out those assessments as well. Can't wait to see you there. In the meantime, stay curious, stay secure.